Hello, you guys. Welcome to my podcast, Magnifying Motherhood. I'm your host, Nicole Ride. Today, I'm really excited because we have an amazing topic for Valentine's month. We are going to be talking about maintaining marriage throughout motherhood. And I have a very special guest. Her name is Amy Campbell. She is my friend and my neighbor, and I just adore her marriage and her family. And I think she's a wonderful example of good things to do in your family and to facilitate good communication. I just want to jump right in. I'm going to have Amy here introduce herself and her family.
Hi, I'm Amy Campbell, and I just want to do a brief introduction. My husband, Jason, and I have been married for 28 years, and it's been pretty awesome. And we have 4 children. We have 3 daughters and a son. Our daughters 2 of them are serving missions, and they're twins, and one is 26 and she lives on her own and is doing awesome. And then we have a son who's 14, almost 15, and he lives at the golf course. That is his life right now.
That's his favorite.
So he kind of rules the house, actually, but it's pretty great.
Well, it's because he's home alone, huh?
Exactly.
Now he's like the only child, so he can do what he
Yes.
didn't get to do.
He gets all the attention.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to dive in a little bit more into how you met Jason. Can you just kind of tell me where you guys met, how you met, your feelings about him and how they grew, things like that?
Sure. So I met Jason at his mission homecoming for our church. My brother had served in Brazil, and Jason had also served in Brazil. So we had some family, friend, acquaintances, and they told us we should go to this home for a get-together to get to know about my brother, his mission in Brazil. And so, of course, I went because I was a young teenager, and I thought, what if the boy is cute?
Ooh, yeah, can't miss those opportunities.
Yeah, there's always those options, and I was young and single, so I went with my mom and my brothers, and I thought he was extremely attractive right away. But he had a girlfriend, I had heard, and so I knew that there probably wasn't going to have anything happen with that. But anyways, we went to his house and met his family and talked, and he asked for my phone number. So I thought that was pretty great, but he didn't call me for a whole month. So I had given up on him by that point.
That made me so mad.
Yeah, I was really sad. I was dating a lot of other boys, and I thought, whatever.
Yeah.
And my mom totally loved him from first sight, though. And when he called a month later, she wanted me to talk to him, so I did, and he asked me on our first date. But apparently, he didn't even call me because he said he never called a girl he didn't know. Oh. And so his little sister dialed my number because she really liked me. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
And then she handed the phone to him, back then when you had landlines.
Yeah.
So, and then he talked to me and he asked me out and we went on a date, and I was planning on not telling him much about my life, just, getting to know him, having a nice dinner.
Yeah.
And then we both just felt really comfortable and we talked about our lives. We talked about everything. And we hit it off really well. Basically, we went on 4 dates that were wonderful. And then he asked me to marry him after the 4th date. No. It wasn't planned for me. It wasn't planned for him.
Oh my gosh.
So it wasn't the typical...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
It wasn't the typical get on your knee and propose. It was, we were sitting in his pickup truck in my parents' driveway. And it was like 11:30, midnight. We always debate on which day it actually happened.
Yeah.
So, and we're just sitting there talking, having a good time, talking about our feelings, talking about our date.
Yeah.
And he said, this means that, do you know what this means? And I'm like, no. He goes, this means the M word. Okay, well, I was playing really dumb blonde at that point because I was like, I just wanted him to
blonde,
ask me.
by the way. You can't see, but she's blonde.
I am blonde.
Beautiful blonde.
And I just wanted him to ask me.
Yeah.
And so then he said, will you be my wife? Will you spend the rest of your life with me? Aww. And I was just like freaking out at first, but also really excited and told him, I actually didn't ask him. I didn't answer him right away. So he was a little bit sad, and he looked at me and he's like, so will you? And I said, do you want to know right now? And he's like, that would be nice. So then I said yes. And
yeah. So had you already said I love you?
Yeah.
Wow.
For the first time that night, actually.
How long did the dates span then if you only had 4 dates? Was it like one every week, like a month?
It really was.
Wow.
I didn't think he actually was very interested in me because he only asked me out once a week. And I was my first year in college, and I was dating. I mean, I dated a lot.
Yeah, dated around.
And so when he only asked me once a week, I thought he's not even really interested in me, you know. And then the day he proposed, we spent the entire day together, and he invited me to his family reunion, which I thought was really weird.
Trying to get you in with the family already.
And he didn't even have plans to propose.
Yeah.
It was just in the moment
yeah.
and it happened.
That's really special.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen that often where that happens and they stay together.
I know,
and
right?
grow a beautiful life.
Right.
I mean, that actually happened with my parents. They were just like, I think they were like in my dad's room or something, just hanging out, and he was like, we should get married. And that actually happened with Dylan and I.
Oh my goodness.
We were also in my bedroom. Don't worry, none of us were doing naughty things, I promise. Just gonna throw that out there right now. We were just hanging out, I swear. And you know, we just were talking like the same thing, talking about how we've been dating for a while, how God keeps like leading us back to each other, because we were just friends for a very long time. And it's just insane how you can just feel like, you know, they're the one, like when you do. And it's just like a strong feeling you cannot deny.
Right.
And it was just like, I think we need to get married. And it just felt so right. And then of course he proposed I think it was a couple weeks later. I don't know. But I had already booked the place we were getting married, the temple, and my reception and my photographer before he even proposed.
Oh, wow. Really, Nicole?
I know. I'm crazy.
That is crazy. Well, I wasn't even his girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even a long enough time to be boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so I went from acquaintance, you know, friend to fiance to wife.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
It happened really fast, and we were young. You know, he had just gotten home from his mission, and thank goodness his girlfriend dumped him because I guess God wanted us to meet each other.
Definitely.
And I was 18, almost 19.
Wow.
So
true love.
Yeah.
I love it. That is so cute. I really didn't know it was like that short of a time.
Yeah.
So, like, with such a quick dating experience, did that make your first years of marriage, your communication, like, hard or difficult? Like, did you get in a lot of fights? Or tell me what that was like.
You know, our first year of marriage was rough.
Yeah.
It was very rough. First of all, you put two people in any relationship together, right? Trying to figure life out that are raised totally different.
Definitely. It's so hard.
And it's really hard. Yeah. During the time his mom was going through some hard medical issues, just some mental situations that she was having a hard time dealing with, and really having a hard time losing her son. She felt like right away after he got home from his mission for our church.
Yeah.
And so that played a big role in it too. She liked me, and we were really good friends for a while, but then when she had her breakdown, it was really hard on our marriage. He felt like he needed to spend a lot of time with her. We were living in Cedar City at the time, so we didn't live by any of our parents. And I would advise anyone getting married, starting out newly, like that is just a really good thing to, especially when you're attached to your families, both of you, to move away and just start that marriage.
I do agree with
you know, that life together without family. It was hard.
Visit family though.
Visit family.
But
it was really hard, but it was really good for us. But as far as our relationship, man, we both took communication class in college the same year, so we thought that would be helpful, which it really was. Yeah. But I was raised in a way where when you get in an argument or discussion, you bury it under the carpet, so to speak, and you don't talk about it. Like you yell, hash it out, and then you bury it under the carpet, and then the next time you get in a fight, that gets brought back up. And every time that keeps getting brought back up, and instead of talking it out and dealing with it, it was just, let's just forget about it for now, and then we'll hash it out later. And so I grew up in a family where my parents fought a lot, and so I watched that, but I knew I didn't want that in my marriage. Yeah. But I didn't really know how to have it be different. Where he grew up totally different than me. His parents loved each other so much, but they didn't really talk about a lot of things. Yeah. So So yeah, I will be honest. Our first year of marriage was absolutely pure hell. It was very, very rough.
Yeah.
And there was many times where we thought maybe we should just get divorced and end our marriage.
Wow.
Because it was just too hard, and Satan was working so hard on us.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And like, even knowing Dylan, I knew Dylan for like over a year. I knew him very well, and I just wanted everything to work so smoothly. And to be honest, I actually don't think we fought very much our first year. We're into our second year now, and that's when I, got pregnant, and then the hormones, and I was crazy, and, figuring out what we want to do with family time and, communication about, like, our quality time together, like when we do school versus when we go on dates versus when we have alone time. Like, I'm grateful that Dylan and I knew each other for so long, because I don't think I personally would be able to handle jumping into something and like not knowing. But I'm really glad that you were honest with me, because like I think that that's something a lot of couples go through, especially in their first year. It's really important to work on communication your whole marriage. Like, I don't think it stops ever. I don't think communication ever should stop improving. I think it's super important, because as humans, we evolve and we change and we try to grow, hopefully not take a step backwards,
Right.
Sometimes that happens, but we try to grow and become better people. And as you're married, you try to do that with your partner at the same time. And like, that can be so hard if you're on different levels or communication skills or things like that. Like, for us, like, Dylan and I think the thing we fight about the most, if anything, is like when we have a miscommunication. Like, and it's over stupid stuff. Like, oh, you said you were gonna pick me up at this time. Like, well, no, we decided it was this instead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the dumb stuff that you don't remember the next day. But yeah.
But I really believe, just through what we have been through in our marriage, that it's really important to fight.
That's true.
It really is important to fight it out sometimes, but just don't carry it on forever.
Yeah.
Fight it out, be done, love each other, get on with life. But you need to voice your opinion. You need to be heard in a relationship. And I feel like if you don't do that, then you're going to bottle things up, and then you are going to get divorced, or it's going to lead to problems in your marriage.
Yeah, or you'll have like a huge lash out and like do something, crazy that you wouldn't have seen yourself doing before. Right. I do agree. I was, this is funny. I was watching one of those like, I don't remember what it's called, like Married at First Sight, like reality TV shows where they don't know each other and they're just married. And one of the therapists on there, I don't know if this is true because it's reality TV, but she did say, just because a couple screams and fights doesn't mean they're bad at communication. That's just how they communicate. They can be just as good at communication as a couple who nicely sits down and talks about it. And, I prefer not to yell in our marriage. I really do. And I prefer not to slam doors and go away, but I will say, like, I'm not perfect. I have yelled at Dylan. I have probably shut doors harder than I needed to. And I do need my alone time when we get in miscommunications or fights, because that's my time to cool down and to think and to take a step back. And, like you said, I think it is important to have miscommunications and disagreements and to talk about it. So I really like that you shared that honesty. I think that leads into a good topic of like how that translates in parenthood and like motherhood. So with your communication with Jason, how did that help you communicate with your kids when they're maybe not, doing what you say or being the best, or like when you get into arguments with your kids throughout the years? Like, how did you co-parent with Jason and talk about that?
Oh, goodness. Well, first of all, I should probably mention that one of the things that was difficult too is with our, marriage starting out, I wanted to be a mom right away. I could not wait to be a mom. I was a mother a lot to my brothers growing up. My parents worked full time, and my dream was to always just be a stay-at-home mom and not have a career, not work outside the home, but just raise my family, raise my children, and be home when they got home from school to help them, to show them that I love them and I'm there for them. And we had Maeve, right away, right after we got married. Well, a year into our marriage, which was really rough because we were super poor and didn't have medical insurance. And Jason was working really hard and going to school full time, working full time, and I was going to school. And we got pregnant right away. We didn't think we would, but we got pregnant right away. And so that was very stressful in our marriage. But one of the things that we decided to do right away was, and we had to learn, as you're parenting, you have to learn how to parent as you go through different stages. Yeah. But we always decided that we would never that we would never not be behind each other in a situation. If we decided that Maeve was grounded or that she was in trouble for something and we were going to take something away, then our children knew right from the get-go that they couldn't go to the other parent and say, well, can I do this? Well, what did mom say? Yeah. Okay, well, if mom said that or if dad said that, then we are agreeing upon that together.
I think that's amazing.
And that is really hard. Now, I'm not going to say it's always been easy, that we don't always agree about it. But if you go back to that and focus on your children need to know that you're raising them together. Yeah. And that one parent isn't going to play against the other parent. So, and the kids can't play the game of, I'm going to ask mom, and if I don't like that answer, I'm going to ask dad, right? And get a better answer.
Totally.
So that's one thing that we tried to be consistent about. Didn't always work out perfect.
It never does.
That's probably one of the hardest things is I was disciplined in a very different way than he was growing up. And so I prefer to not discipline our kids that way. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. So, you just really have to talk about those things as the time comes and you have your children. And also, every child needs to be disciplined differently because they're all different.
That's a good point. I like that.
Some people would say to me, because we had 3 girls first and then a boy. And people would say, well, boys should be treated one way and girls should be treated another. I mean, I agree to that to a certain extent, but they should all be disciplined equally, but depending on the circumstances, right, of what's happening, it's kind of, we have to discuss what's the best way to discipline. And then also, back in the day when we were kids, you could get beat with a belt or whatever, and it was fine, it was okay, because that's how our parents were raised. Yeah. But then, as your kids get older and life changes, the generation's different. Man, if you hit your kid with a belt nowadays, it would be abuse, right? So every generation, you really have to kind of talk about it and see what's going to be best. Yeah. And for every kid. Yeah.
Dylan and I did talk about that as we were getting married, engaged, and we were just saying, what if we have a kid that does A, B, and C? What if they do this? Do you believe in spanking? Do you believe in timeout corners? Do you believe in, whatever? Mm-hmm. And I won't get into what we said because it's not relevant, but we had to talk about it. And, we don't have a child that's old enough to punish him that way, when the time comes. But I think we'll have to have a learning curve, like you said, with communicating as we go. Mm-hmm. Because even now, there's times where, the baby will start crying and I'm more oh, let's give him 5 minutes to cry and then let's check back in and see if he's okay. Right. Whereas sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes Dylan will just get up to go get him and I'll be wait, no, he needs to learn how to self-soothe and I'm stressed about that stuff. But of course, not neglecting him, just, letting him cry it out a little bit. But anyways, it's just really interesting. So I want to get back to your marriage because this is the episode about marriage. So I want to know, well, I'll rewind. I just want to let our listeners know that I think you have a beautiful marriage. I had you as a youth leader, and I truly remember, I don't remember the words you said, but I remember the spirit that you brought into my heart about how your husband treats you and how you should never settle for less. And that has always stuck with me, from you. Okay. And that's why I chose you for this episode because you helped me know what I want in a man and how I should be treated. So I want to know, what are some things that you do in your marriage to cultivate that atmosphere? And I want to focus on date nights, because I know you guys love to do date nights. So
We do.
how did you make that a priority? How did you decide that was a priority? And what are some ideas you guys like to do just for fun?
So first of all, I would say probably about 15 plus years, give or take. Jason's parents got divorced, and it rocked his world. And it was something we didn't expect, because we thought that they were one of those people that had this great marriage, right?
Yeah.
They were very affectionate to each other and things like that, but sometimes things don't work out. And we had to have a really good talk that day, and that's the day that it changed everything for us in our marriage. We weren't putting each other first. His work was top priority. It was a very demanding position, and it was affecting our marriage quite a bit. And so we decided right there and then that we were each other's priority. Obviously our kids, but that we had to come first, because if we can't have a good foundation, you really can't raise your kids very great,
Totally
in a nice
agree.
home,
Yeah.
right? And so we decided at that moment, we were sitting in a car going on a nice drive, and we thought, you know what? We said to each other, what can we do in our marriage to make it so this doesn't happen to us?
Yeah.
And then we had a really good talk about it. And one of the things we talked about was obviously open communication with each other, putting each other first, and having a date night. And so from then on, so many, many years now, we have made, and our children have known since they were little, that Friday night is mom and dad's date night.
I love that.
And, things are going to come up. There's going to be things that will come up during the week where you can't do Friday night every week.
Yeah.
But if we don't get to do the Friday night, then we do it to a Saturday night. And if we can't actually physically go somewhere, then sometimes we'll just do it at home and, make things work. Whatever works. Sometimes we just go for a drive in the car for a couple hours while the kids are together, or like an hour. Go get an ice cream or a treat.
We do that too.
Right?
Yeah.
Just so we can have that time where we feel like it's important to have that time to get to know each other better and to go back to when we were first dating.
Yeah.
And we always talk about, I think it's important to, when you are mad at your husband or you're having like a quarrel, to think back on the way you felt with him or towards him the first time you met. And go there in your mind. Yeah. And honestly, if you will do, if we do that, like I really feel like it makes you appreciate them more. It makes you kind of, okay, that wasn't that big of a deal. I really love him. Like I fell in love with him, and this is how I felt. I want to feel that again. Yeah. And we see so many couples that have gotten divorced, who have not been close. Totally. A lot of people who have talked to us about not being close. What can they do to change that? And it comes down to, you've got to continue to fall in love with each other all over again. Constantly. Yeah. And so I thought that the day we got married was like the most amazing day of my life. And that I could possibly never find the love that I had for him any more than I did that day. And I loved him so much that day, And 28 years later, I love him more than I could possibly ever imagine. Like my love for him has grown so much that we are a very strong couple because of that. Yeah, put in the work. We put in the work. Yeah. We've had to put in a lot of work to get to where we are. Yeah. A lot of patience and love for one another. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, those date nights, they just rock, because we go on our dates and we tell each other, the rule is we don't use our cell phones. If the phone rings, this was more like when our kids were younger, but if the phone rings and it's one of our kids, we're going to answer the phone. That's the only reason we would answer the phone. But we will not sit at a restaurant and have our phones. You see that all the time where people are on a date and they have their phones out. And,
what's the point?
It hurts our heart. Why are you dating each other if you're on your phone? Yeah. And I want my husband to know that he is the most important person in the room, and him with me, So we don't have our phones out. We just focus on each other, and we talk about only positive things. We tell each other that It's a rule breaker to have the phone out. It's a rule breaker to talk about our kids on date night. And we can only talk about like happy things that bring us closer to each other as a couple.
That's cool.
You know, because there's always times you can talk about your kids. You know, they're your life, right? When you have children and you have a family, they're your life. But there has to be time for just the two of you to reconnect. And our kids have always known that, and they've always been patient with it, and that's what they want for their lives. Yeah. You know, so it's been a great thing.
That's awesome. And like what I notice when Dylan and I have a date night, I flirt more with him. Like we kind of flirt more. Oh, yes, and it like is so fun because it brings back that like sexy, fun, love, spark feeling that like obviously isn't there all the time because life gets in the way. And I do think it's so fun to go out with him because, you know, if we do like a certain type of date, I see his competitive side, or like, you know, if it's like a golfing or some kind of arcade game date, or if we're getting like ice cream, that's more of our talkative date nights, you know, or if we just go see a movie, we can like hold hands and like share popcorn and lean my head on his shoulder. And it's like, there's just so much variety you can do with your person. And I think it's important also to try new things with your partner, you know, like think of new things you can do. Like, don't always do the same thing over and over again. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I agree. Yeah. In fact, during COVID, that was like that was kind of I don't know what the word is. We kind of made a decision during COVID that, you know, we weren't going to stop going out. We weren't going to stop dating each other, but we weren't really able to go to restaurants and movies and things like that, right? Because everything was closed. Oh, yeah. So we decided we would have Bronx go over, who's our son, to Maneve's house, to our daughters, or, you know, something like that, so we could have a date night at home. And we decided that once a month that we were going to find a new fun recipe that we've always wanted to make, but we've never made before.
That's so fun.
And we would cook in the kitchen together. And oh my gosh, Nicole, that was some of the funnest dates. Yeah. We would just laugh and we would have fun together. And
that's so cute.
I had to learn to not be overbearing because the kitchen's kind of my domain.
Oh my gosh, I feel the same. Yeah.
I love to cook. I'm the cook. Yeah. But doing it together, we get our aprons on and we take some pictures. Yeah. And I think our first meal was salmon, and we've never cooked salmon before. Oh. And so we found this recipe and we made salmon. And then we made these yummy desserts, and we would we'd eat our food on our TV trays that we've had since our wedding, right? For 28 years. Yeah. And then we'd play card games.
That's so fun.
And just laugh and visit with each other. Yeah. So that's a fun idea to do.
And that's like such fun memories. Yeah. Like even just seeing you light up about talking about it. It's like you can tell that you enjoyed that. Yeah. And I'm sure Jason feels the same. So yeah, I think it's so fun. I mean, dating is up to every couple. They can do it however they want, you know, but I think it's fun to get new ideas for me personally. So I think Dylan and I should try that sometime.
You would love it.
Send the baby upstairs to mom and dad and make something and try not to tell him how to measure. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And it doesn't have to be something expensive. Oh, yeah. It could just be something simple. We don't go on dates that cost a ton of money every week. That would be so expensive. Sometimes we just go for a drive and visit. And I love that. But it's just still time together.
Yeah. So I totally agree. I think that dating your spouse is so fun. And then it also gives your kids, no matter how old they are, it gives them a chance to see that you love your partner and that they're a priority. And I actually think that doing that and taking time for your spouse can make you a better mother because you feel fulfilled. Your cup is filled with love from your spouse, and you can then pour some of that love into your kids, you know, and show them what a good marriage looks like. And that's one of my biggest goals as a mother, is to show them an example of good, true love. And I think that's awesome. I kind of want to now just switch to talking about the 5 love languages just for our last little section here. Okay. I just want to introduce the 5 love languages. That is a book by Gary Chapman. If you aren't familiar with this, it's a book that's become super popular, especially in the marriage and family studies world. It really helps you break down how you personally give and receive love to your spouse or with your spouse. So basically what you do is you go online, and if you want to do it, you can just Google 5 Love Languages quiz by Gary Chapman. It's usually like the first link that pops up, and you pick the quiz that fits your relationship status, and then you just answer a bunch of questions of like, how would you rather, like, would you rather receive a hug or would you rather receive a handwritten letter? And you just pick between them. It's really easy. And then automatically it ranks your 5 love languages in order of like the top one is the most that you feel loved. So the 5 categories are words of affirmation, which means like compliments and, you know, good things like that. And then gifts, acts of service, quality time, and then physical touch. So we'll just take the last little bit of this podcast episode to go into a little bit of detail and just kind of a few ideas of what we do to cultivate that in our marriages. So we'll start with words of affirmation. And there's actually a quote by the author, Chapman, that I think says it best. He says, "A compliment speaks 1,000 words. Admiring comments come from almost everybody around you. Your superior and your colleagues at work, your friends, your parents, your children, and more. Yet, at sundown, it is your spouse's flattering remarks that will essentially complete the day's high." I think that it's huge to compliment your spouse within marriage, like every day. I know that when Dylan compliments me on either my looks or something I've done, like a dinner I've made or how I've taken care of Andrew that day, it truly makes me so happy and I feel very appreciated. I just want to ask you, does Jason give you like a certain compliment that you really appreciate?
I mean,
I'm sure he gives you a million because you're gorgeous.
I would just,
and so fun.
You're so nice. I just can't say enough about that boy. He always compliments me.
Yeah.
Probably one of the cutest things is last night we were at the gym together, and I was meeting him there, but I didn't see him anywhere. And we usually find a treadmill by each other if we can. And I didn't see him, and I thought that's weird. And all of a sudden I get this text, and it said something like, "I'm glad that you're in front of me because you're motivation for me to want to work out. Because I can watch you." And I was like, oh my word, you are so funny.
Flirty.
Yeah, so it's
That's
fun
so
because you need to still, I mean, the guy needs to hear how attractive they are to you all the time still. They need to know that you appreciate them.
And how hard they work.
And how hard they work to provide for you and the family, right?
Yes.
Just as much as you need to hear that, you know. I think that us as women, we automatically, like by nature, I think, love to be complimented.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I do.
Yeah, I do too.
But it's so important to make sure we compliment our husbands as well. Right?
I agree.
I'm trying to think one specific thing. That's a hard one.
I mean, if you can't think of anything, it's okay. I just was curious if there's one.
He always tells me that every time I walk in the room, he falls in love with me all over again.
Okay, that's it. He's out of a freaking rom-com. Let's just print out 1 million different Jason Campbells, put them around the world, few girls to marry.
He's pretty great. I really was lucky, blessed, whatever you want to call it, when I got him.
That's so sweet.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is just so sweet. I love that. And I think that if, you know, as a listener, if you're not someone to naturally compliment people, because I know that that's hard for some people to just be like, "You're pretty," or "I like your shirt," you know. Right. I think a simple goal with your spouse or even just your kids or a friend, if you're not married, just pick one thing that you, well, maybe this is more for your spouse, but pick one thing that you love about their looks and tell them, and pick one thing that you love that they did that day. And just try to have like 2 little things that you compliment them during the day. And it can be over a text, like you said, or it can be in person. I think in person means a lot as well. But, you know, sometimes I'll wake up the next morning and Dylan will have taken out the trash, and I'll just text him like, "Hey, I noticed you took out the trash. Like, thank you very much."
Cute.
You know? So just things like that. And I know that Dylan, he was really nervous to be, to become a father and to step into that role and to wonder how he would feel taking care of him and, you know, holding the baby and changing his diaper and just the things you have to do. And he's really stepped into that role, honestly, very naturally. I haven't had to give him much guidance or direction. And I compliment him on that. And I truly think that it helps him be a better parent. And I think it makes him feel good because he is trying really hard to be a good dad, as I'm trying to be a good mom. And so when he comes home, And even if the house is a mess, he's like, thanks for taking care of Andrew. Like, you did great, Nicole. And like, it just makes me feel so good. Because sometimes I just don't feel like I'm enough. But when he says something like that, it makes me feel like, okay, he approves, you know, it makes me feel good. So,
well, and I think it's important that we don't always focus on looks as a compliment. The other day, my husband said to me, he's like, you know, I always tell you how beautiful you are and I focus on your looks. He said, but I want you to know that to me, you're more than just looks. He says, you are very special on the inside. He's like, I love your inside and who you are just as much as I love your outside. He's like, I just want to make sure that you know that.
So important.
And I thought that was really sweet and really important for women to know and men.
Totally. I definitely agree. So with Valentine's Day coming up and it being Love Month, I am personally challenging you to compliment your spouse or someone around you that you care about deeply, whether it's about their looks or about their personality. Just compliment them because it seriously lifts people up much more than you think. The next love language is gifts. And I think that a lot of people assume that if this is your love language, that you're like really materialistic and you just like stuff. But I think it can also simply mean that you just enjoy knowing that that person was thinking of you when they got it for you. Like, I don't think it always has to be a big gift or expensive. It could just be like flowers at the store, or it could be like, hey, I was grocery shopping and I saw your favorite chips, so I grabbed them. I do that for Dylan all the time. Like, I will do our grocery shopping and see that they have Takis. That's like his thing. Okay. I'm more of a hot Cheeto kind of girl, but he loves his Takis, so I not always, but I try to grab Takis whenever I see them, and
I love it.
You know, just something to be like, oh, I was thinking of you. And sometimes he'll receive a cookie or a donut at work, and he'll be like, he'll bring me half home. Aww. Like, he'll save it. And I'm like, what? That's so nice. So I think it can be really anything like that. And I just think it's important, like, especially because, you know, gifts are talked about more with like holidays and with anniversaries and birthdays. I do think it's important to talk with your spouse about your expectations for gifts and how much money you're spending, like your budget, because I don't know about you guys now that you're more established and, you know, whatever, but for Dylan and I, as we're still trying to save and he's still going to school in the future and I'm, you know, we only have one income, we do have a budget and it's pretty tight, but like we try to still think of each other. And so we do have to say like, okay, we're going to have a blank dollar limit, you know, whatever limit on our gift we give. And we try to keep it within that so that not one partner doesn't feel like, whoa, they got me like $100 gift and I only got like a $25 gift, you know? Like, it's hard because you want to give your partner like the world. Yes. But I do think it's important to have a limit. Sometimes, you know, unless you're like a millionaire, then maybe you don't. But just really quick, like, how do you and Jason manage gifts for things like that? Like, is that kind of what you do, or do you just kind of pick stuff out?
It's kind of bad to say, but we do kind of just pick things out. We don't usually say, you know, you can spend this, you can spend that. But he loves to give me gifts because he knows I love surprises. So I'm a jewelry wearer. I love jewelry. Yes. And so he likes to get me jewelry, which means a lot. And everything I wear is very meaningful to me. And I like that. And it's things that my kids can have, you know, later. That's cool. When I'm not here and down the future. Some of them have many have already dibbed some stuff. She said that I'm going to take this when you die type thing. But what I wanted to add is when we were first married, now that you bring up gifts, and we had no money, like we were so poor, and we didn't have money for gifts. Yeah. But every once in a while, I'd come home from work and we had this little desk, like right when you walked in the door, and he would have a little box with a little note on the desk, and it was always a little piece of jewelry, just a cheapy piece of jewelry. There's a company that used to be called, some of you ladies will know this, but Nicole probably doesn't because she's too young. It was called Finger Hut. And he used to get me jewelry from there. Just really cheapy, but it meant the world to me. Not because of what it was or what it cost, but because he thought of me. Totally. You know, and it was interesting because when I did my my relationship quiz, if I would have done it many years ago, probably even 10 years ago, I would have done a lot focused on gifts because I loved gifts. Yeah. And not saying I don't now, But our relationship is so now that gifts aren't the most important thing to me anymore.
Yeah.
Time with him is the most important
Priceless,
thing to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's true. I do want to mention that, like, with this 5 love languages quiz, it does evolve, because I've taken it when I'm single, I've taken it in other relationships, I've taken it when we were engaged, I've taken it when we were married, and I also took it while we were pregnant. And it was so funny. A lot of you will relate to me on this, but when I got pregnant, my physical touch plummeted to the lowest. I was like, don't touch me. I don't have energy for that. Like, I don't want to do anything. And, you know, it's interesting how it does change with each phase of a marriage or a relationship. So that is something to keep in mind, that these can change and, you know, whatever. But so the next one is acts of service. And I do think this one is huge in marriage, especially if you're a parent, because I don't know, if you just try to keep tally marks in your marriage, I did this, I did that, you did this, I did that, you know, it's horrible. It's like, you just have to be selfless, I think, and try not to keep tallies in your head of who did what. I know that I did that at first, with some chores or like things like that. But I feel like I've kind of grown past that a bit, and I try to just, not always, I'm not perfect at it, but I do try to just serve because I want to and make him feel good, and he does the same with me. So I don't know, is there a certain way that you like to show Jason service?
You know, where I'm a stay-at-home mom, I've been really privileged and blessed to be able to stay home. And I guess my thing that I try to do to serve him and my family is make meals. Those are the way I show how I love them, is to make sure I have yummy food. I try to always have the house clean and picked up, because I want there to be a peaceful, loving feeling when people come here. When my family comes home from a hard day, those are the things that I do, you know, to make.
And I think that a lot of people give, especially in today's world of like, you know, modern feminism, a lot of people give being a stay-at-home mom a lot of crap, quite frankly, because they just think that you're a slave in your house all day. And I'm just here to tell y'all that is not true. There are some days, my house literally looks like a twister right now. Like, it is not clean all the time. And my husband just has to get that. Like, he just knows. And like, I still have him do some of his own laundry. Like, I don't do everything. And he does dishes, you know, like we split up our house chores how we want to. But I am a stay-at-home mom, and I do want to do those same things that you do, like overall. And so I do think it's important with acts of service to discuss like how you want your house to be and how you want your life to be, with work balance, family balance, things like that, because, you know, I just don't want stay-at-home moms to feel like that's all they are, just like a cook or a cleaner. And it's awesome if that's like what a woman wants to do, because that's what I wanted to do, and that's what you wanted to do, and I truly love it, and I think it's just as important as a career. And
it's not expected in my marriage. I just want to make sure I point that out. It's not expected at all 100%. From my husband. It's something I do out of what I want to do for him and for my kids.
I love that you added that.
I think that's important to note that. But he does kind of jokingly say to people that he has a magic house.
Oh my goodness.
Because, you know, if he wants something done, or if he wants food, or if he wants laundry, it's just done. It's magical. And he says that as a joke, and it's definitely not something that he expects.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure if you ever felt like that, you could communicate with him, you know, and he'd understand. So
he'd be getting whooping if you said that.
One of the last love languages is quality time, and this is personally my favorite one. This is my top love language with Dylan. I have always valued quality time with my spouse, and especially now that we have a baby, I just think it's so important. I just think there's so many distractions today, like you said, our phones and TV and whatever, that it's truly like vital to spend quality time with one another. And I also think in motherhood, it's important to spend quality time with your kids, like one-on-one. I think that can really help cultivate a good experience for your kids, to show that you care about them personally and also as a family, as you spend, you know, quality time with your whole family as well. So we'll just move right on to physical touch. That's the last one. And so Both sexual and non-sexual physical touch can be super helpful in maintaining that initial spark and romance that you feel in your marriage. Just on a couple Sundays ago, I actually saw you holding hands with Jason, and I thought it was so cute. And so how do simple acts of physical touch, whether they're sexual or non-sexual, how do they help you feel connected to Jason?
So I'll start with this. Honestly, doesn't matter if I've had a rough day or if I'm mad at him or if the kids have drove me crazy or vice versa, for him, when we see each other at the end of the day for the first time, we always, before we even talk about our day, because, it could be crazy depending on your life and your kids' ages and whatever is going on in your life. We always embrace each other with a hug and a kiss. Yeah. Because even if you've had the worst day ever or you're mad at each other, if you just don't say anything and you embrace with a hug, that love that you feel and warmth from that other person that you love so much will just make everything else go away.
It feels so good.
And it's amazing. Yeah. And so we've decided that a long time ago. And our kids know they can't even talk to their dad if he's coming home or if I'm coming home. It's usually him coming home because I'm usually here. Yeah. But they can't even tell about their day until Jason and I embrace, and then they can talk.
All right, kids, we're the priority here.
Exactly. And then they know that, and so they've been used to it.
I love that.
We do that. We are very affectionate. Yeah. As a couple, I am very grateful for that. We try to hold hands all the time whenever we're by each other. Even when we sit on the couch watching a movie, we're always holding hands. He's always in the car either touching my leg or holding my hand or, just I'm playing in his hair or, just some type of physical touch so that person knows how much you care about them, that you notice them, that they're there.
Totally. And notice, not one of those things you mentioned were sex. Right. You don't have to be intimate that way with your partner to feel so connected and in love with them. I mean, that obviously helps. Right. But and it doesn't have to be like that.
Right. Sex is amazing and it's great and it is important in a marriage, but it doesn't always have to be that. It can just be rubbing their arm or playing in their hair or them rubbing your back or, a foot massage or just some type of a touch that they feel like they're important.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree.
And then that may lead to something else. You never know. Right?
Yes. And I do think it's important to say, obviously we know that sex is important in marriage and it's a beautiful thing. And, even in marriage, you still need to have consent with your partner. It should never be a forceful thing or something you don't want to do. And so you have to communicate that with your partner. I think that if you're ever not in the mood to have sex or if you're feeling off or just having a bad day and you don't have the energy, it's really important to just in a nice way without rejecting them as a person, say, I'm not in the mood. Can we take a rain check or something like that? Because and it could be, a lot of people think it's the girl rejecting the guy. I think a lot of times it can be both, it's both ways. And so you just have to be open and honest and just make that quality time that you have with each other really meaningful in your marriage, and it'll be okay. Yeah. I just think that the love languages are an awesome way to get to know your partner and to get to know yourself and how you feel about love. And it's honestly really eye-opening. Once I took the test with Dylan, it really did help me see that he needs to be filled up with compliments sometimes. And it made me realize I probably wasn't complimenting him enough because his is words of affirmation. I think it's been a while since he's taken it, but that's what it was last time. And so I think that marriage is awesome, but it's also hard, like you said. But I truly believe that you can keep that honeymoon phase, that spark, that romance, if you put in the work, and you're a living example of that. And I know that your kids appreciate it. I think sometime in my youth group with Maneve, I'm sure, I feel like she's talked about how awesome her dad treats her mom, and I just admire that so much because, that's what I always want in my marriage and for my kids too. Yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up?
I think as my children are getting older and I see them in relationships, I try to teach them that it's important to let the guy know right away in your relationship what you expect, as far as wait in the car if you have to for him to open the door. Communicate about him opening the door.
Yeah.
And don't let them think that it's okay for the guy to just let you get yourself out. My husband is very, very much a gentleman, and he always opens my door. If he doesn't open my door, it's because my son beats him to the door and they have a race.
That's awesome.
And then he opens the door.
Yeah.
But he's been raised that that's what we do. That's being a gentleman. And I think that we've lost that a lot in the world today. But I think like the little things, that makes me feel special and loved.
Totally.
Just that he comes around and opens my door, and I thank him for that. And what else was I gonna add? So I'm in a time of my life which I never thought would happen. It's kind of weird when my kids are all getting older, and I told my kids all the time before, when we would always go on dates when they're younger, why do you always have to go on dates? Why do you have to go on dates? And I would tell them, because when you guys get older and you leave the house, mommy and daddy still have to love each other and want to be together. Not just love each other, but be in love with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to touch on, is because a lot of people can say that they love their spouse, but are you in love with your spouse?
Yeah.
I love my spouse, and I am in love with my spouse, and I
Me
find
too.
that love grow every day more and more.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. Yeah. And we talk about these amazing things, but if you have a marriage that you are struggling in, I hope that this inspires you somehow to see what you can have, and to maybe think of some ways that you and your spouse can improve, because not a lot of people probably feel as happy and in love as you and Jason, and that's just the hard truth.
Right.
And I just want to put it out there that change is possible and improvement is totally possible. It just takes work and love and patience, like you said. And I will just end on one last final question. I ask this to every guest I have, and it can be super simple. What is your favorite part about motherhood?
Oh my goodness. Well, like I said at the beginning, I wanted to be a mom since I was really young, and I babysat kids all the time. My favorite part about motherhood is I get to see life through my kids' eyes.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love, now that my kids are adults, most of them, I love the relationship that we have with one another.
Yeah.
They want to come home. They want to come hang out with mom and dad. I don't think that's as common anymore. And I hope that is always there.
Yeah.
Motherhood is so precious to me that I want my kids to always feel they are wanted and they are accepted in our home.
That's beautiful. I really love that. And I have the same goal with mine as well. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining me today. I really feel like this was a super beneficial conversation, especially for me to see how I can improve my marriage. And I hope that those of you listening, you'll feel inspired somehow, or just feel, I don't know, just new ideas to try things, or just what you deserve in life and how you can become a better mother through your marriage. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would like it and download it and subscribe or share it. Any of those things could really help me out. I'm so grateful that you listened. And as always, you can find us on Instagram at Magnifying Motherhood with a period and then Nicole. I post more content and updates there, so you can look for that. But yeah, thank you so much, Amy, for being here. And I hope that you all have an amazing week, an amazing love month. I hope that you take what you've learned today and go on a hot date for Valentine's Day, and, just enjoy your spouse and love your spouse. So you're always loved and amazing, no matter what stage of motherhood or life you're in, and you got this. So thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.